if you see yourself as somebody who is a guitar player, then it would be impossible for you to not see yourself as a guitar player.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the Jeff Heilman Project. On our last episode, we were encouraging you to send in any of your questions, any of your business ideas. We were encouraging you to go out and play yourself into success by emailing us at thejeffheilmanproject@gmail.com. Well, today we're going to continue on that conversation and in that trajectory towards playing and learning something new by asking that age-old question, can an old dog learn new tricks? And it's something that I think all of us come to when we've finished high school, we've finished college. We're not necessarily in the habit of having to learn a new skill or a new trade. We'd love to hear from you what trades and skills you've picked up after you've gotten out of college and you've started out on your own. One of the things that Jeff has done is picked up playing the guitar and actually, in my opinion, sounding pretty sweet. Honey, when did you... Now, from what I understand, from what I remember, what you said, you did play a little bit as a kid or growing up. Like you had a guitar or somebody had a guitar. Your dad had a guitar. I think most people have some form, I would hope, musical instrument in their house. But tell us,
I think most guys that I knew growing up had some interest in learning about musical instruments and basically trying to woo girls. At an early age.
Casanovas. Bunch of Casanovas around here.
Absolutely. I think it all comes down to getting attention from girls and wanting to stand out from the crowd. And so I think most guys that I knew growing up, I can't speak for women. I know there's lots of women guitar players too, but I probably knew C, G, D, E minor, A minor, chords, and had gotten my fingers not bloody, but certainly chewed up.
Sure.
Just trying to learn how to play guitar chords, but I wouldn't have known like action on a guitar, whether it was good or not, or what the brands were, or picking patterns. I didn't know any Travis picking patterns. I probably knew 3 or 4 songs, and I would do one note at a time to try to figure out just how to play little stuff. But
so what made you decide to pick up
serious.
the guitar as an adult, and how old were you? Because let's face it, you're not necessarily needing to woo your spouse anymore or find a girl. You found your girl. So what is what drew you to being an adult, picking up a skill like this and wanting to learn something very, right brain, out of the box, and different than what you do on a daily basis?
It's something that I always wanted to do, and I like the aesthetic of it. I like the shape of the guitar, the color of the wood, how it's got a spruce top and a mahogany back, and how just the shape of it and the feel of it in your hand, and playing and singing. I also have a trumpet, and I've also got a clarinet, and you can't sing while you're playing that instrument. You can sing on the off beats with a trumpet and a clarinet. You can have vocals added to it. But to be able to play guitar and sing, I had this just kind of dream of being able to play around a campfire and entertain people and be background music. And there were a handful of songs that I really wanted to learn how to play. So I turned 40, and I'd had a severance check from one of those companies that laid me off. I forget which one it was. I think it was Intel. I think Intel had laid me off. So I get a big payout, and I quit work on a Thursday, and I start work on a Monday. And I've got this pile of money in the bank.
Severance, right? Isn't that what they call it? That's it, severance.
And so I was like, all right, I'm 40. I've been talking about doing this forever. And it's just one of those things, and I'm sure women can relate to it too, but for those guys out there, you hit these years with zeros on the end of them, and you think, okay, like I'm watching my life go by, and certainly working hard, certainly taking care of your family. But when I turned 40, it was like, all right, I'm not this old dude that the number might suggest. I can learn how to do something new. And I'd kind of gotten a little frustrated. Normally, when you make life-changing decisions, there's a bit of angst and a bit of frustration involved, I think, in them. And that was the situation for me. I turned 40. I had a pile of money in the bank. I wanted to learn how to play guitar, and I had a new job. So anytime you have a new job, it's kind of a season of creating a new identity for yourself. And so I'm like, I'm a guitar player. I'm gonna do this thing that I've always wanted to do. And the other thing that I knew was that if I didn't buy a really nice guitar, I would never practice. I wanted to buy a guitar that I was in love with. And so all my favorite guitar players, from the guys at Extreme, John Mayer, Van Halen, and it's rare in the world of consumer goods to have something to where, like, everybody knows, if you're in this world, everybody knows that Martin makes some of the best guitars in the world. It's kind of the gold standard, and they've been making them for 150 years, and they're great. So I went down to this, and I didn't want to go to the mainstream kind of large neon. Not that we have anything against neon, but the large neon signs. I didn't want to do business for my bespoke, custom, handmade wooden instrument. I didn't want to do that at one of the big stores. So I went to a place called Griffin Strings in Palo Alto, and they just turns out to be the largest repair center for Martin guitars west of the Mississippi. They do all the repair work for all the major musicians in town, if they have Martin guitars. And they had a guitar that was made the same year I was born for sale. It was 40 years old at the time. It'll be almost 50 here in a little bit. And I was able to purchase this guitar with the money I had on hand, and it was in perfect condition and sitting out, which means somebody had sold it, was selling it on speculation that they could move it, because you don't usually take something this nice and old out of the case. But it had just been taken out of the case an hour before, and it was hanging on the wall. It was in perfect condition. It was absolutely beautiful, and I had to have it. So that was the start of my guitar playing.
That's the start of, well, I think that's kind of an important lesson to add to this whole idea of learning something new, is that when you do, what did they say? When you put skin in the game, you're more invested, you're more involved. And like you alluded to, and like you said, is you knew that if you got something really nice, that you would be more apt to play it because of the cost investment that you were able to put into it. Because
and
of
the
what
aesthetic
you put
of
into
it. I mean,
and
it
the
wasn't.
aesthetic.
Yes, I had some money invested, and
But if you would have bought like a $50 Yamaha guitar, no offense to Yamaha, not.
Yeah, and Yamaha makes some
and Yamaha makes some really good
guitars.
guitars.
$400 and $800.
But you may not have necessarily
I wanted a Martin.
Gone all into learning how to play this instrument and learning how to make it sing to us. Off topic, where everybody who's listening and not watching, if you haven't tuned into the YouTube channel in a while, go back and check it out. We've got new chairs, and they are so much more comfortable than the couch.
And these chairs, you scored these, and there were 3 of them available. Which normally, if you're going to buy chairs, you buy 2. You don't buy 3.
Yes.
You might buy 1 or 2.
Very strange.
But there were 3 chairs. They're down, stuffed. These are like $1,500 chairs, and you found 3 of them for how much?
Found them at the thrift shop.
Like
I think
$200.
Yeah, 3 for like $200, and at the time I didn't know why we bought 3.
I didn't know why you bought 3 either, but it's like there's 3 of them. They're unique.
And when we went to the configuration, what really happened was when I went to Las Vegas, we were coming up with ideas instead of me calling in. Who could we have come in? Who could we have set up? And then we kind of kept coming up against a problem of when we have 3 people on the couch, when we did with Madeline and when we did with Joe, it's a little awkward, but it was okay because it was our family. But if we have somebody that we're not that close to, it might be a little bit intimate to have the 3 of us together snuggled up on the couch. So then it kind of clicked, and it was like, well, we have these 3 chairs for some weird reason. And why don't we set it up to where when we have a guest, as is right now, our your lovely guitar, whom I have affectionately called Rosevelt, Rosevelt, or Rosie here, is our third guest, but when we have a actual human being guest, there will be a third chair right here, right in the middle. It will be set up appropriately and perfectly. So you walk us through the process of how learning a new skill, like learning how to play the guitar. I mean, we have always talked about in our home systems. We attempt to have systems for everything. We have systems for taking the trash out on Wednesday nights. We have systems in place through the checklist. There's a system probably very similar to when you go into a new job, you have a system in place. When you go into a new activity, like a new way to hit the golf ball, there's systems in place. When you have a new activity like playing the guitar and learning how to play the guitar, there's a system that you put into place. What is what would you suggest, or if you could kind of boil it down to a 3-pointer or a 4-pointer on how to get, I would say, gain your confidence, but even just like be able to play something like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star? Like how would you encourage somebody who's picking up an instrument for the first time, maybe even picking up the guitar for the first time? Are there like 4 steps? Is there like a 4-step applicable system that you've put in place in all of these different avenues that you would say that could get to the point to where you were playing something, you were making good sound come out of this guitar?
That's a good question. I mean, here I'm the student and being asked to talk about teaching. Is there a system? I think there are systems, and there's guys who have talked about what their process was like.
Do you watch YouTube videos? Do you do
Yeah,
scales? Do you do?
I think the biggest thing that could help somebody that's starting with a new instrument is to become part of the community of the instrument, of people that play that. And if you can't do it because of post-COVID and everybody's online, there's Facebook groups, there's people who play, there's courses you can buy, there's YouTube videos that are free. There's songs that you like. The way I started, and I don't know if this is the right way, it's probably not, but I had one song that I really wanted to learn how to play. And so I've probably watched 50 different versions of this song played on YouTube, and I found one that sounded as close to the record as I could get. And I actually, ironically, last week I found another one that showed one chord progression change from C over G to G7th, and it didn't sound right. Like my guitar playing didn't sound like the record, and this one's getting me a little closer. So there's one song that I was just obsessed with learning how to play, and it's like, I'm just going to frickin' figure it out. I don't care what I have to do. I don't care how many nights I have to work and have my fingers just be shredded, or how many days off I have to take of practice in order to get this down. I'm going to figure this out. And I just started with the hardest song, probably the hardest song on the planet that I could try to learn how to play. The chord progressions, it's played, for anybody in music, it's played at 100. On the record, it's played at 110 beats a minute, which is really fast. I mean, that's just warp speed. But after 2 years of working on this song, I was able to get the chord progressions down and get it to where I could play it so intuitively at speed that I could sing with the record and play at full speed.
Well, I love that you bring that up, because that is such an integral component to learning something new. It's basically what I hear you saying is full immersion. It's like if you're going to learn a foreign language, if you're going to learn mathematics, if you're going to go into a new job, jumping into the community, getting started right away, going into full immersion of whatever it is that you're learning, you're going to become more fluent, I would say, faster than if you are going to say, I'm going to start, and I'm just going to start by doing this, A, B, C, D, E thing. And so full immersion seems to be like one of the best ways to go about learning anything new, and that is what you have done, and I can't wait to hear you play.
Well, it ain't no use to sit and wonder why, babe. even you don't know by now. Ain't no use to sit and wonder why, babe. It'll never do somehow. When your rooster crows at break of dawn, look out your window and I'll be gone. You're the reason I'm traveling on, but don't think twice, it's alright. Ain't no use in turning on your light, babe, the light I never knowed. Ain't no use in turning on your light, babe, I'm on the dark side of the road. I wish there was something you would do or say to try and change my mind and stay. We never did too much talking anyway, but don't think twice, it's alright. Then he comes in with a harmonica. So it ain't no use in calling out my name, gal, like you never done before. Ain't no use in calling out my name, gal, I can't hear it anymore, more. I'm a-thinking and a-wondering, walking down the road. Once loved a woman, child, I am told. I gave her my heart, but she wanted my soul, and I said no. Don't think twice, it's alright. So long, honey babe, where I'm bound I can't tell. Goodbye's too long a word, babe, so I'll just say fare thee well. Well, I ain't saying you treated me unkind. Could have done better, babe, but I don't mind. You just kind of wasted my precious time. But don't think twice, it's alright. And the big harmonica finish.
Yay!
My groupies group of one.
Well, it's amazing. And the fact that you can do a right hand in one direction, a left hand in another direction, and think about what to do next and sing at the same. I mean, this
It's
is
why I
like,
need the words. There's so much going on that I gotta have, at 110 beats a minute, I gotta have something to anchor my attention. It's harder than it looks.
but
And it looks pretty hard.
It's so important to add as even a principle of life, that to have, like, we need anchors when you got so much going on.
Yeah.
When you're just doing a ton of things, when you're doing your right hand, your left hand, your brain, you got to have an anchor. And that anchor is so important and so grounding when it would appear that you've got a lot going on at the same time.
So yeah, granted, I've been playing this guitar. I've been playing this song, trying to play this song on this guitar for 8 years, 9 years. So with this setup with the monitors, I can't hear all the bass notes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm using pure muscle memory and going by feel, because I couldn't quite hear where I was in the song a couple times. But it's, I went from not being able to play anything to being able to play that in 2 years.
Yeah.
Pretty much, I don't think I've gotten that much better in the last 9 years. Maybe a little smoother, a little more relaxed with it. But
Do you find learning how to play one song, becoming fully immersed in this song, did that aid your finger dexterity? Like, did it help you
oh,
in learning how to play other
100%.
songs or
Yeah.
being able to play other songs?
The biggest pushback that you have to learning guitar in the beginning is your fingers are not strong enough to hold the strings down in the chord progressions, right? So that first C over G, that chord right there, or that's a C over G. So you can hear that C over G bass versus open. The fingertips, first of all, like if you kind of zoom in on and I don't know where the camera is, but if you zoom in on my hand for just a second, there's a couple things. If you come at it like this, you're going to be hitting strings that you're not supposed to be hitting. So you want to move your fingers away from, and if anybody that doesn't play guitar doesn't care about this, that's fine too, but you want to move your fingers to
We
where
have
they're
episodes for
pushing
everybody.
straight. You want to push straight down. Well, pushing straight down on the strings takes strength, and it also takes some calluses on the tips of your fingers. You also want to play it right behind the fret versus if I'm here, that's your buzzy. You're going to get some buzz. But if I go here, you can do so all of these little nuances, and then to be able to change hammer on, hammer off, and then go to a quick chord progression like an A minor, and then an F. To be able to make those changes quickly and make them on the beat, I mean, it's thousands of hours of practice to be able to do that, and just all on one song. And you could be like, oh, it's so lame, like, but then to be able to pick up another song right away. Once I lived the life of a millionaire. Spent all my money, didn't have any cares. I took my friends out for a mighty good time. Bought bootleg liquor, champagne and wine. Then I began to fall so low. Lost all my good friends, had nowhere to go. I get my hands on a dollar again. I'll hang on to it till that old eagle grins, because nobody knows you when you're down and out. In my pocket, not one penny. And as for friends, you don't have any. When you get back on your feet again, everybody wanna be a long lost friend. I said it's strange, without any doubt. Nobody knows you when you're down and out. Like, you can do that. You can pick that up in minutes. You can pick that up in hours instead of thousands of hours once you get the chord progressions down. And that was the big rub, is like, if I can get through Bob Dylan, if I can do that, then Eric Clapton should be easier, right? Fewer chord progressions, easier Travis picking, slower song, right? Fewer bars. So you start with the really hard stuff and then work backwards. That's what I've always tried to do, and it seems to work.
Yeah, I think that I'm just thinking as you're talking, there's so many times when, like in golf, learning how to play golf, people think the hard thing is driving the ball, when in essence the hardest thing is the 3-foot putt, is the 4-foot putt.
The hardest part of golf is a 3-foot putt under
And so
pressure.
if you start with putting and you work your way back as you're learning how to play golf,
Yep,
you
that's
putt
right.
and then you chip and then you do your. So when we teach golf, or to our children or to others who are starting in golf for the first time at any age, is start with the putt and then get proficient at putting and then get good at chipping and then get good at your to the green and your 100-yard shot and then you keep working your way out to driving, because the goal of the drive isn't to get it into the hole. The goal of the drive is to get it nearer to the green.
Yeah.
And so it's the goal of the putt to get it into the hole, and that's the hardest. So we're starting with the hardest. We're working our way back. I'm sure it's the same with basketball and your 3-pointers and your layups, and there's a sequence to learning, starting with the thing that's the most challenging, and the more proficient you can get at doing that, then you can back up and you can actually end up being playing. And it seems like it's such an adverse way of doing things, because you would think, well, don't you want to start with learning, ABC? Well, as homeschoolers and as unschoolers, for our kids, our kids usually get motivated to read because they want to read the big books.
Yeah. They want to read Lord of the Rings.
They want to read. They're like, hey, I really want to read Harry Potter, and it's like, okay, you want to read Harry Potter, then let's get the book and let's start learning these words. Tell us about you had read an article once about little boys and how little boys were not reading, and how that they were.
Oh, yeah.
They were not reading, and they couldn't figure out why they weren't reading. And I think this is applicable here, because a lot of people won't pick up the guitar for the first time because they think if they're going to pick it up, they're going to learn they have to play Mary Had a Little Lamb, when what they really want to play is they want to play like Slash, and they want to play some sick guitar
Slaughter
solo.
and Scorpion.
Yeah, exactly. They want to pick some sick guitar solo,
Osbourne.
but they get depressed because they think they got to learn how to play Mary Had a Little Lamb. What we're saying is learn the guitar solo. Pick up the guitar for the first time and you learn how to play that solo, and then you'll be definitely, Mary Had a Little Lamb will come in a couple years' time. But tell us about that principle and that story, because I do think it's applicable, because the little boys weren't reading. They weren't interested. So tell us what you learned.
Well, there was a public school city in the 30s, 30, 31, somewhere in there. And they had a class. It was like 15 boys, 15 girls, split right down the middle. And it was a kindergarten or first grade class. It's very young. And fall had just, we're not quite at fall yet, but kids are starting to talk about going back to school now. And all the kids were expected to be able to read at this age level. Maybe it was second grade, but I thought it was like first grade or kindergarten. And they were all expected to be able to read. And 2 or 3 weeks into the school year, all the girls are reading. During reading time, all the girls are reading, and all the boys are misbehaving. Just being mischievous, just goofing around. They're not reading. And it was like split right down the middle, boys and girls. And all the boys were not reading, and all the girls were reading. And they couldn't figure it out, so they brought in specialists. Is it inner city? Is it based on socioeconomic status? No. Is it based on where they live? No. All the boroughs were represented by this one school, so they couldn't figure it out. Did they come from a good family, bad family, black, white, in the city or out, bridge and tunnel crowd, or people that lived in the city? And they couldn't figure it out. And then about 6 weeks in, there was a box of boys' books that showed up. And what they realized is that the content that was available for the little kids to read was all what we would traditionally in that era suggest was interesting to little girls, pixie dust and
Probably
flowers,
dolls and
dresses and dolls and makeup and that kind of stuff.
the house, or stuff like
And
that.
Socially, at that time, those things were all associated with little girls, and boys were into things like dirt, trucks, and
Cars
and engines and things like that. And those were the things that were expected for little boys to be interested in. As soon as they made the change, as soon as they added the boys' books, and they basically said, okay, Johnny, here's a book about something you would be interested in. Within 2 or 3 weeks, the boys were all right back up to grade level. And the point of that story is that we're asking an almost impossible thing for anybody to do something that is contrary to what they identify with, what they see themselves to be. So if you see yourself as somebody who is a guitar player, then it would be impossible for you to not see yourself as a guitar player, or for you not to play guitar. And if you don't see yourself as a guitar player, it's almost impossible for you to start because you just don't identify, you don't see yourself. So the trick in anything is, and I would tell myself, I'm a guitar player and I'm going to learn this song. I'm a guitar player and I'm going to learn this song. And now I can look myself in the mirror and say, I'm a guitar player. I may not be very good. I may not know a lot of songs. I may not practice as much as some people do, and I'm certainly not going on tour anytime soon. But I do see myself as a guitar player, and I enjoy it. So I put the work in, and because of the work and the muscle memory and stuff, I can play a few tunes.
And to bring it back to the very beginning of this podcast, the very beginning of this episode, we were also addressing the bucket list. I think that as we come out of school, as we come out of high school, as we come out of college, as we get on a path, and we have kids, and now we have a job that's more or less, day in and day out, we do begin to write bucket lists, have bucket lists, think of the things that we would love to be able to do one day, be able to, like, maybe one of the things on your bucket list is learn an instrument, play an instrument, or play and using the play that we've been talking about for the last 4 episodes with the theme, play a new sport, do something new for the first time, and get that thing off of your bucket list, or at least try, at least attempt. Now, we're not saying you have to go full all in identity-wise into what, you might have skydive on your bucket list, and do we think that you have
Doesn't
to
mean
start...
you have to do it.
Exactly. It doesn't mean you have to start calling yourself a skydiver. No, it's this whole concept of living life.
Yeah, the Bible says, I think King Solomon said, the wise man thinks often of death.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it means they dwell on it, or they're afraid of it, or they're worried about it, or they're constantly obsessed with it, but just thinks often of.
Yeah.
Is consistently reminded of the fact that, we got one chance, and to say that we're going to make the most of it, we should.
I agree.
We have an opportunity to make the most of our one shot that we get. I wanted to have a wife and kids, and we did it. And we started really early on. We knew early what we wanted, and at 19 and 21, we were able to get married and start this family. And now, Nessie's like 6 now, so we're seeing that there's kind of this life after kid raising that we didn't really know about. And it's funny too, because all of our friends, we have friends kind of in 2 different camps. One are the friends in their mid to late 50s, and they're all, either empty nesters or
done having kids.
Or I talked to a friend of mine, John Milanovich, up in Montana earlier this week, and I think he's 51 or 52, and he's got a 1-year-old, his first kid, right? So he waited a little longer and was talking to me about that. He's like, if I would have known how fun this was, I would have got started earlier, right? And then we have other friends of ours who are like. Jess and Brandon are just getting married here, I think, in a couple of weeks. And they're in their late 20s, and they're not married and about to get married and don't have any kids yet. So we're on all of those spectrums at the same time. Like, we're in our late 40s coming up on 50 with little kids at home. We were in our 20s getting married and started having kids. We've got a kid that's now in his mid-20s.
Yeah. One might say to us, Jeff and Jessica, do you do anything small? The answer is no. Nope.
We do debt big. We do kids big.
Faith big.
Jobs big. I do guitar big.
Podcast big.
I literally, for probably the first 2 years, I had this $2,000 guitar, and I only knew one song, the one that I had played earlier. But
go big or go home.
Yeah, we like to do big stuff, and we like to do it fast and as hardcore as we can to get the job done. But since I've gotten into my late 40s, I've started to travel a whole bunch more for pleasure. I started reading Hemingway, which I've never read Hemingway before. Hemingway and Steinbeck. Art. I was never really that much into art. Now I'm totally into it. I've seen Van Goghs and Matisse's and Diego Rivera murals in multiple museums in the last year. Picasso's and Renoir's, and who's the other guy? The other Cubist guy, George
Broke?
Yeah, I'm learning like tier 2 and tier 3.
Or Brock, I think is
It might be Brock. It's George.
Braque. Brock.
Cubist, right? We're able to recognize him, and the Jackson Pollocks, and then the Jean Baptiste, the French sounding New York business partner, possibly lover of Andy Warhol back in the 60s.
You should curate some of those images for the Amazon store. Just because
show people what we're
just
doing,
show
about. Yeah.
what the poster, like maybe some posters of the artists that you're talking about, because it is cool.
So great.
I love the aesthetic as we're getting older and as we're getting more mature. There is an aesthetic to the guitars. There's an aesthetic to the posters. There's and the art. There's an aesthetic to there's an aesthetic to all of it, that it just seems like the more
show you. Look at this thing.
the more mature
So cool.
that we get, the older that we get, the more texture and the more color that comes into our lives.
Look at the color of this spruce top Martin D18. You can see the striations of the mahogany and the sheen. This has never been refinished. Probably could use
Dusting.
a coat of lacquer, but to gently see the colors underneath the coat, urethane or whatever it is, and you can see little tiny nicks and scratches, but nothing systemic except for this one little ding, and I don't even know where that one came from. But this is just the color and the shape and the feel and the.
And for those of you who are listening via audio,
fantastic.
it is a beautiful spruce. Is like a gold color. It's a very yellowy golden front guitar with the
grain in
beautiful
it
mahogany back and bass, and it's just a piece of art. I think that we like, as we grow older, as we become more in tune with what we like, it's art, all of it. We like to be surrounded by art and
beautiful things.
And we encourage you all today, as we close out, to surround yourself with beautiful things. That let art, not finances, have the last say.
The guy that built the Crystal Cathedral, the late Robert Schuller, had an architect, and the architect drew plans for a crystal cathedral, a building made entirely of glass that would allow the outside light in, would have doors at the back of the stage that would open and allow the fresh Southern California air to come in, that would be consistent with the roots of that church, which was a drive-in movie theater, is how they got started. And the phrase that the architect gave Robert when he was a little nervous about the finances of the operation, he said, "Let art, not money, have the final word."
That's right.
And I would encourage anybody coming off of this podcast, think about what the ramifications would be in your life if you let art and aesthetic and beauty, hopefulness, and joy have the final word in your decision making and in your attacking the bucket list for what you want to accomplish before you can't accomplish anything anymore.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you for liking, sharing, and commenting on this episode and on all of our episodes. We are nearly at 100 subscribers on YouTube, and we are going to do a huge celebration when we hit that 100 number. There may be some champagne involved on the air. And if you want to always...
Can you drink on the radio?
And if you would like to email us at thejeffheilmanproject@gmail.com, please send in, and we will not only shout you out on the air, but we will also attempt to answer any questions that you may have.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in, and have an awesome rest of your day.
Good night.